Leslie here. Well, good morning, by the way. We're going to be starting off, let me fix my little bangs here. We're going to be starting off most mornings with this series, so I hope you'll join me. You can binge watch the previous 7 days of this on YouTube right here, and I'm also posting these videos on Instagram under Paralegal Coffee Talk, and let's see, on my Facebook page called Paralegal Coffee Talk, and where else? On TikTok, trying to upload to that platform as well. Okay. Oh, I think that's it. Okay, so today is day 8, and it's called Move On, and this series is based on 90 days. It's a 90-day series, okay? So stick with me on this. It's going to help you greatly. Unstuck by Kimberly Jones, available on Amazon. I don't have a link. Just go to Amazon and look for Unstuck. It's a new book, and I really believe it's going to help you. So, move on. What's that mean? Let's go into the verse. Philippians 3:13 and 14. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing. And this is Paul talking. Forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Jesus Christ, is calling us. You know, Paul was known as Saul during Jesus' time and after Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead and ascended up to heaven. Paul was known as Saul, and he was a member of the priests called the Sanhedrin, and they were in the Sanhedrin. They were pretty fierce against Christians, the new Christians that started following Jesus. And Paul was one of the chief persecutors of the Christians, but he was known as Saul. So on one of his hunts to track down Christians on the road to Damascus, Jesus struck him down off his horse, and he was blinded. But Jesus spoke to him and said, Saul, Saul, why dost thou persecute me? So he had a meeting with Jesus that day, and Jesus called him out on his persecution behavior. And Paul became a changed man. Jesus said, your name will now be Paul, not Saul. And that's what we know him as in the Bible, Paul. He became one of the greatest missionaries ever. So there had to be a change. It was time for Paul to change from a persecutor to one who was furthering the gospel and telling others about Jesus and training others to be missionaries. It was amazing. Let's go back to David. He was 15 years old when God bypassed all the other brothers. Can you imagine what was going on in the minds of those brothers when God, through Samuel, instructed Samuel to get David out of the field, bring him in to this meeting, and then anoint him as the future king of Israel? Now, he didn't become king officially at 15. It was 15 years later, at age 30, that he became king. God gave David the power to kill an incredibly huge giant across the field from the Israelites, where David was standing, to where the Philistines were, and it was really scary. But David took a sling out and with a rock just took this giant down. I mean, the Philistines took off. They were no longer courageous. And then David went over and just took the head off of Goliath. God gave him the power to do that. You would think that there would be a plan in place to choose one of David's older brothers to be the king of Israel. But God said, David is a man after my own heart. Not meaning he was, perfect. But God knew at his core who David was. And he knew who the brothers were. And he didn't choose them. God had a plan. And David was the head of that particular plan. So our tendency, I used to have this tendency, because I would hear my family say, oh, they were born with that talent. Oh, they just know how to do that. And they never saw themselves rising above in many instances, or that they had gifts, or there was a plan in place for them. None of us knew that in my family. They thought, if you wanted to become an artist, or you were going to use your talent, you already were born with that. That's what I heard all my life as a child and into my young adulthood. And then I started realizing I could learn some of this stuff. And what is it that I like? And I became an artist later in my life. I became a paralegal, and I didn't share it with my family because I knew I wouldn't get support. So I didn't even share much with my spouse because of how I was raised, with lack of support in that area, except from one auntie who would have supported me with whatever. She would have said, go for it. That's one person in the entire family. So when it's time to go through a change in your life, sometimes you have to do it with zero support. I didn't tell that auntie, though, that I was doing this. I just thought I'd try it, because if you tried stuff in my family and you didn't succeed, it was a failure. That's not a failure. That's an adventure and a journey and an investigation. And that's what I had to learn. And I want you to understand that you may go into the legal field and you may not like where you are planted. You may not like the law firm, the government agency, the nonprofit, a corporation that you're in. You may not like that particular place. It may be that you have to plant yourself in a different atmosphere. I know I did. I had to make changes. I would change jobs often for two different reasons: to raise my salary and or to change my environment, to keep my mental health in a good place. And that, my friends, is very, very, very important when you're in any kind of career. It's okay. My parents stayed in jobs my dad was a supermarket manager for, almost 30 years. And then they fired him because they were hiring young guys, 21 years old, that they could really, really micromanage and put them at the helm of a supermarket. And they could pay them a lot less. And my uncle lost his job as a butcher in the same supermarket chain. So did many people. My husband lost his job of 28 years. Because they were selling off the division and they wanted to get his salary out there, because he was one of the top positions he had worked up to after 28 years. And other people who helped transport product, and there were about 15-20 people that were let go. A lady that had been in human resources for decades with my husband, and knew my husband well, and they wanted to get all those salaries out there to make their profit margins look better. So and when I watched all this stuff happening, I knew there was no loyalty. And so I had to take care of my career myself. And remember that as you travel along, because I had to support my family on my own for a while until my husband was able to land some work in the state that we moved to. And that took a while. It took over 3 years to land a job. And then he actually changed jobs about 2 or 3 times and ended up in the most wonderful place with a wonderful employer, a friend. Okay. So change is hard sometimes, but it's necessary. And open your mind to more change. It might shake you up personally, but I had to just say, Lord, I don't think this is good for me to be here in this place, and I need to learn how to interview better. That's what I teach you. I teach you in my course how the questions to ask to help yourself. Okay, that's just part of that, and that'll be opening up in next month. So stay tuned. Sometimes God chooses the one who you might think is the least of these to become the leader. You might never have expected to see yourself as a leader, and you might not be that in the legal field, and you'll be happy working with the attorney, but in many ways you have to take on that leadership mindset to solve problems for the attorney. You can't just sit there waiting for direction. There are some things that, yes, you can move forward because you already know it's okay to do that, and the attorney has okayed it. That's leadership. Paralegals are leaders in many different instances, okay? So Paul had to do, in the New Testament, Paul, the former persecutor of all Christians, Jesus confronted him, took him right down off the horse, blinded him for days. And people took him, and they recognized him. The Christians took him and took him to a house and took care of him. And then his sight was restored, but people were really afraid. The Christians in the area, they didn't trust him. And he had to prove himself that he wasn't just faking this, that, then he's going to kill them. There was a complete 180 change in Paul, but people were skeptical. Okay, so change is great. Be open to it. And because you're open to it, then you will get unstuck. But not being open to change will keep you in the same old, same old. So make up your mind that today is going to be a day where you have to learn new things, perhaps, in order to elevate yourself in this field or whatever field you're going into. But this channel is dedicated to entry-level paralegals. If you're a seasoned paralegal, and I have veterans watching my videos too, you might be stuck in the position you're in. This happens in a lot of fields, okay? You will soar like you never believed you would if you open yourself up to learning new things and being unstuck. People have said to me that they're incapable of learning a particular software. I am not, I have said this before, I am not an Microsoft Excel expert. I'm pretty darn good with Word, but I'm not as good as some other people might be. I worked with a girl who was a complete whiz, and I would ask her for help. I more than get by with Word and more than get by with PowerPoint. And I love working on graphic software like Canva. I don't use that for the legal field, though. Some people might. If the attorney is one that does speaking engagements, he may need the paralegal to do a flyer. Yeah. We get to do all sorts of things. I never had to do that for an attorney. I had to advise an attorney one time, not legal advice, but I had invested with my husband in purchasing little homes in Tallahassee, and we fixed them up cosmetically. There was no major roof needed or anything. We would purchase the home. We bought for overtime and rented them out to students or just families. And so one of my senior attorneys knew we were doing this, and they were looking at buying a home in Tallahassee and renting it to their one of their family members. And then they were looking at they were wondering if they spent too much, but the market was going up and up and up, and it was a great investment where they purchased. So we had that conversation. You never know what, how things are going to go, but they were relying on me as a paralegal, but also for other things as well. So be open to getting into this field, but also if you're in school right now or taking an online course, or you can't do any of that, because as I faced, I had no money for that. There was no money for that, and I wasn't eligible for loans because I was working and my husband was had a really good job, and there, I wasn't eligible for loans. And I thought, I'm going to try to get in without schooling. Now, in California, you have to have either an online degree, a certificate, or a 2-year degree. Now, if you're in California, you need to investigate that, because that was a new rule that regulation they passed. You can read it. It'll tell you when they passed it. It's more than a few years ago. So check into that. Check into your state's paralegal regulations. I have an older document on my website. You'll see a tab for it for paralegal regulations by state, but you need to go then into Google and research that to find out what's the latest. Do your investigation. That's what we do as paralegals. So membership is going to launch next month. It'll only be open, registration, as I usually do, will only be open for a 72-hour period. It's going to be, I will tell you this, it'll be, I will say, what's today? I will say it will be mid-September. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And it'll go bi-monthly. Okay, I used to call it the Paralegal Inner Circle class. It's called the Beginner Paralegal Growth Accelerator course or class. Okay, and you'll see it on my website, but it's not open right now. So stay tuned. And if you're new, you're looking at the field for the first time and you're watching this video, you're wondering, I don't know if this is for me. I need to know more about this. What's the day-to-day like? I have a beginner's book on Amazon called Legal Break-In. No, it's not for people in the field already. This is for people looking at their career for the very first time. I think it's like 80 something pages, and that has been updated, and a new cover as of about 3 years ago. And good, solid information. Gives you day in the life of certain types of paralegals to help you understand what we're doing every day. That's just tip of the iceberg. So go check that out, Legal Break-In. Now that's on the website, paralegalcoffeetalk.com. Lastly, join the Paralegal Resource Hub totally free. There are videos in there that will be worth your while to watch. And there are questions you can answer too if you feel like it. I love hearing your feedback, truly do. So that's it for today. Have a great day, and I will talk to you in tomorrow's video. Okay, take care.